The gleaming halls of the Galactic Academy of Physical Sciences buzzed with nervous energy. Students of various species huddled in small groups, their whispered conversations echoing off the polished metal walls. Some had tentacles that twisted anxiously, others had antennae that twitched with worry, but they all shared the same concern. A human was joining their class today. Tom Smith stood at the Academy's main entrance, his standard-issue duffel bag slung easily over his shoulder. At 6 feet tall with an athletic build, he looked ordinary by Earth standards. Here, however, he might as well have been a giant. The registration drone hovered nervously before him, its anti-grav units working overtime to maintain a safe distance. "Welcome to the Galactic Academy of Physical Sciences," the drone chirped, its translator working to convert its binary code into English. "Please be advised that this facility maintains standard galactic gravity of 1G. Would you like us to reduce the gravity in your designated areas for your comfort?" Tom couldn't help but smile. "Actually, I'm from Earth. This gravity is perfect for me." The drone's processing lights flickered rapidly. "Earth. Processing. Class 12 Deathworld. High-gravity environment." "Oh my," the drone backed away another foot. "Please proceed to Orientation Hall 3. Try not to break anything." As Tom walked down the corridor, other students pressed themselves against the walls. A group of green-skinned beings with 4 arms each stopped their anti-gravity ball game mid-throw. The ball dropped to the ground with a soft thud, and they stared at Tom with all 12 of their eyes. "Don't worry," Tom said, raising his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I'm just here to learn, like everyone else." The orientation hall was designed to accommodate beings of all sizes, with hover chairs that adjusted to each species' unique body structure. Tom took a regular seat, careful not to lean back too hard against the delicate-looking backrest. Around him, the other new students maintained a careful radius of empty seats. Professor White, a tall, willowy being with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer in the light, stood at the front of the room. "Welcome, new students, to another exciting year at the galaxy's premier physical education institution. This year, we are honored to host our first human student as part of the Interspecies Exchange Program." All eyes turned to Tom. He gave a small wave, trying to appear as non-threatening as possible. "For those unfamiliar with Earth classification," Professor White continued, "it is what we term a death world, a planet with high gravity, extreme temperature variations, and significant atmospheric pressure. Its inhabitants have evolved accordingly." A blue-skinned student near the front raised a trembling hand. "Is it true they can break bones just by squeezing?" "That's not exactly accurate," Tom spoke up, keeping his voice gentle. "We're strong by galactic standards, yes, but we have excellent control over our strength. On Earth, we even have jobs that require very delicate handling of fragile objects." The professor nodded approvingly. "Indeed, the human capacity for fine motor control is quite remarkable. Now let's review the safety protocols." As the orientation continued, Tom noticed some of the tension in the room beginning to ease. A few students even dared to glance at him with curiosity rather than fear. When Professor White demonstrated the emergency gravity controls, Tom paid careful attention, even though he knew he'd never need them. The session ended with a tour of the facility. Tom watched as other students activated their personal gravity reducers to move comfortably through the 1G environment. He walked normally, his natural Earth-evolved strength making it effortless. A small purple being with crystalline features observed him with fascination. "You move so easily," they whispered, "like the gravity isn't even there." "This is normal for me," Tom explained. "Where I'm from, some people do exercises with weights many times heavier than their own body weight." The crystalline being's features sparkled with shock. "Exercises? You mean, for fun?" Tom laughed softly. "Something like that. I have a feeling this year is going to be very interesting for all of us." As the tour group moved on, Tom couldn't help but wonder what these beings would think when they saw him in actual physical education classes. If they were shocked by him simply walking around, wait until they saw him run. The Academy's gymnasium was a massive dome-shaped structure with adjustable gravity fields and safety padding on every surface. Tom walked in wearing the standard-issue exercise uniform, a simple gray jumpsuit designed to fit any body type. He noticed right away that his was the only uniform without attached gravity reducers. "Welcome to Basic Physical Education," announced Coach Green, a tall insectoid being with gleaming compound eyes. "Today, we'll start with simple fitness assessments to establish baseline capabilities for each species." The other students gathered in a loose circle, maintaining a careful distance from Tom. Most of them had their gravity reducers set to 0.3 G or lower, making their movements appear almost floaty. A blue-skinned student with large, curious eyes caught Tom's attention. They were the only ones set to 0.5 G. "I'm blue," they said, drifting closer to Tom. "I've been training to handle higher gravity settings. Most of my people never go above 0.2 G. Tom smiled, appreciating the friendly gesture. "Nice to meet you, Blue. That's impressive progress with the gravity training." Coach Green's whistle-like appendage made a sharp sound. "First assessment, standing vertical leap. Remember to adjust your gravity settings to standard testing level of 0.1 G. Tom raised his hand. "Coach, I don't have gravity reducers. I'm comfortable at 1 G. The gymnasium fell silent. Coach Green's antennae twitched nervously. Are you sure? The medical bay is fully staffed, but we prefer to avoid any incidents." "I'll be fine," Tom assured him. "This is normal gravity for me." The other students went first. At 0.1 G, they made impressive leaps, floating gracefully through the air. Some reached heights of 15 feet or more, their bodies adapted to moving in low-gravity environments. They landed softly on the cushioned floor, their gravity reducers helping them settle gently. Then it was Tom's turn. He stood at the starting line, aware of all eyes on him. Without the advantage of reduced gravity, he bent his knees slightly and jumped. The gasps were immediate. Even in full gravity, Tom cleared 7 feet easily, his powerful leg muscles launching him upward in a smooth motion. He landed firmly but gracefully, the impact absorbed by his natural shock-absorbing biology. "Impossible," someone whispered. "In full gravity?" Blue's eyes had grown even wider. "How did you, without any assistance?" Coach Green's appendages were shaking slightly as he made notes on his holopad. "Next assessment. Basic strength test. Please approach the variable resistance bars and lift what you find comfortable." The alien students approached the floating metal bars, each calibrated to their species' typical strength levels. Most lifted weights equivalent to a few earth pounds, their bodies designed for efficiency in low-gravity environments rather than raw strength. When Tom stepped up to the bar, Coach Green quickly adjusted the settings. "Please start with the minimum weight for safety." Tom gently gripped the bar and lifted. The weight felt like nothing. "Could we add more?" As Coach Green increased the weight, a small crowd gathered. Blue watched in fascination as the numbers climbed higher and higher. When Tom was finally lifting an amount that gave him a decent warm-up, about 150 earth pounds, several students had to sit down. That's enough for today," Coach Green chittered, his professional composure slightly cracked. "Let's move on to cardiovascular assessment." But before they could begin, a tall, willowy student approached Tom. "Is it true that humans do this for recreation? Lifting heavy things repeatedly?" "Well, yeah," Tom said. "We call it weightlifting. It's pretty popular back home. Some people lift way more than this." The student swayed slightly. "And you don't break?" "Nope. Actually, it makes us stronger. Our muscles and bones adapt to the stress." Blue, who had been listening intently, suddenly squared their shoulders. Could you teach me about human exercises?" Tom beamed. "Of course. We'll just need to adjust everything to your gravity tolerance. We can start with simple movements, and work our way up. As other students began to drift closer, their fear giving way to curiosity, Coach Green watched with a mixture of concern and fascination. It seemed the addition of a Deathworlder to his class was going to make this semester very interesting indeed. 3 weeks into the semester, Professor Gray swept into the gymnasium, their floating robe causing ripples in the air. The tall, gray-skinned administrator's arrival immediately silenced the usual pre-class chatter. Even Coach Green's antennae stopped their usual twitching. "I've been reviewing the class performance metrics," Professor Gray announced, their voice echoing in the dome. "And I find them concerning." Tom, who had been helping Blue practice proper stretching techniques, looked up. He had a feeling this was about him. "Our human student's presence has disrupted the standard assessment scales," Professor Gray continued. "Therefore, I propose a series of special physical trials to properly evaluate and categorize Deathworlder capabilities." A wave of murmurs swept through the class. Most students still kept their distance from Tom, though a small group, led by Blue, had started joining his modified workout sessions. "With all due respect, Professor," Coach Green chittered nervously, "the human's regular activities already exceed our safety parameters." "That's precisely why we need proper documentation," Professor Gray insisted. "How can we maintain academic standards if we can't properly measure all students' capabilities?" Tom raised his hand. "I'm happy to participate in any trials you design, Professor, but maybe we could make it a learning opportunity for everyone." Professor Gray's silver eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Well," Tom said, standing up slowly to avoid startling anyone, "instead of just testing my limits, we could set up different challenges that play to different species' strengths. Make it more about understanding each other's capabilities." Blue suddenly floated up, their gravity reducer set to 0.4 G, a new personal best. "I support this idea. The human has already helped several of us improve our gravity tolerance." A crystalline student named Rock chimed in, their facets gleaming. "It's true. I can now maintain 0.3 G for 10 minutes straight." Professor Gray looked around the gymnasium, noting the mix of worried and excited faces. "Very well. We will conduct a series of trials, but with modifications. First challenge, endurance testing." The professor activated the gym's environmental controls. A complex obstacle course materialized, featuring varying gravity zones, climbing walls, and balance beams. "Each student will attempt the course at their own gravity setting," Professor Gray explained. "We will record baseline capabilities for each species." The trials began. Most students chose gravity settings between 0.1 G and 0.3 G, gracefully floating through the course. Some showed impressive agility in the low-gravity sections, their bodies perfectly adapted to space station life. When Tom's turn came, Professor Gray hesitated. "Your preferred gravity setting?" "Standard 1G, please," Tom replied, trying to sound casual despite the gasps from his classmates. "Very well. Begin when ready." Tom approached the starting line. The first obstacle was a climbing wall that most students had floated up easily. He began climbing with steady, deliberate movements, his muscles working naturally against Earth normal gravity. "Fascinating," Professor Gray muttered, taking notes. "No signs of strain." The balance beam section proved more interesting. While other students had struggled to stay centered even in low gravity, Tom's Earth-evolved sense of balance made it almost effortless at 1G. "Look at his micro-adjustments," Blue observed excitedly. "His species must have amazing proprioception." The final section involved a sprint through alternating gravity zones. Tom maintained his pace steadily, his body automatically adjusting to the changing forces. When he finished, his breathing was only slightly elevated. "That was just a light workout," Tom explained to his stunned audience. "On Earth, we have obstacle courses much more challenging than this." Professor Gray's usual stern expression had been replaced by one of intense curiosity. "Would you be willing to demonstrate some Earth-style exercises? With proper safety protocols, of course." "I'd be happy to," Tom said. But remember how I mentioned making this about everyone? I've been thinking, each species here has unique physical advantages. Maybe we could design challenges that showcase those too. Blue bobbed enthusiastically in their low-gravity field. Yes, the crystalline students have amazing balance, and the gas-filled species can change their shape to solve problems. Professor Gray's expression slowly shifted into what might have been a smile. Perhaps we've been too focused on standard metrics. Very well, Mr. Smith. Show us these Earth exercises, and then we'll discuss incorporating other species' special abilities into our curriculum. As the class gathered around, their fear now fully replaced by curiosity, Tom began to demonstrate basic Earth calisthenics. Who would have thought that simple push-ups would become an interstellar sensation? The Academy's gymnasium had changed dramatically over the past month. Instead of scattered groups keeping their distance from each other, students now gathered in mixed species clusters, each learning from the other's unique abilities. At the center of this transformation was Tom, who had turned one corner of the gym into what he called Earth Training Zone. Remember, Tom said to Blue, who was attempting their first proper push-up at 0.5 g, keep your core tight and move slowly. It's about control, not speed. Blue's arms trembled slightly, but they managed to lower themselves and push back up. I did it. A real Earth exercise in half-Earth gravity. Great job. Tom beamed. You've doubled your gravity tolerance in just a few weeks. That's impressive progress. Nearby, Rock the crystalline student was teaching Tom how to maintain perfect balance in varying gravity fields. Their species' natural crystalline structure gave them an incredible sense of spatial awareness. Your internal fluid balance affects your center of gravity, Rock explained, their facets gleaming. Try shifting your weight more gradually. Tom wobbled slightly as he attempted to maintain his position, while the gravity shifted from 1 g to 0.5 g. This is harder than it looks. You make it seem so easy. A small crowd had gathered to watch this exchange. It was still strange for them to see the mighty Deathworlder struggling with something that came naturally to another species. Tom called a gaseous being named Cloud, who floated nearby. Could you explain again about human endurance? Our species can float indefinitely, but you mentioned humans can move continuously for hours. Tom carefully stepped down from the balance platform. Well, on Earth, some humans run for fun. We have races called marathons that are over 40 kilometers long. The entire gym fell silent. Even the students who had gotten used to Tom's stories about human capabilities looked shocked. But why? Cloud's gaseous form swirled in confusion. What predator requires such disdain fleeing? It's not about fleeing, Tom laughed. Humans just enjoy challenging themselves. We evolved as persistence hunters. We can keep moving long after other animals need to rest. Blue, who had finally mastered the push-up form, floated up excitedly. Could you show us? Not a full marathon, but maybe a demonstration of this running thing. Tom looked at Coach Green, who had become much more supportive of these demonstrations. The coach's antennae wiggled in approval. All right, Tom agreed. But first, let me explain some Earth sports. We've got this game called soccer that's all about endurance and coordination. For the next hour, Tom demonstrated various human sports movements: running, jumping, kicking, and throwing. The alien students watched in fascination as he explained how these seemingly simple actions combined into complex games. The most incredible part, Blue told their classmates, is that humans do this for entertainment. Their bodies are so robust that they can repeatedly impact each other in games like rugby and heal from it. Professor Gray, who had been observing from the doorway, finally spoke up. Mr. Smith, your species' physical capabilities are remarkable, but what's more impressive is how you've helped others improve. Miss Blue's gravity tolerance has increased by 200%, and others have shown similar progress. Tom shrugged modestly. Everyone has their own strengths. Rock's balance is amazing, and Cloud can change their shape at will. I'm just helping them build on what they already have. Nevertheless, Professor Gray continued, I believe it's time we revise our physical education curriculum. Perhaps a more integrated approach that celebrates all species' unique abilities. The announcement was met with enthusiastic agreement from the students. Even those who had initially feared Tom were now eagerly sharing their own species' physical talents. Also, Professor Gray added with what might have been a smile, the Academy Board has approved your request for a multi-gravity sports league, though I suspect we'll need to handicap the human team significantly. As excited chatter filled the gym, Tom watched his classmates with satisfaction. What had started as fear had transformed into something remarkable, a true exchange of abilities and understanding between species. The Academy's main hall buzzed with excitement as Professor Gray unveiled the massive holoscreen displaying the upcoming interspecies athletic championship events. Students of all species clustered around, their gravity reducers creating a strange mix of floating and walking observers. The championship, Professor Gray announced, will feature events designed to showcase each species' unique abilities. For the first time, we will celebrate our differences rather than try to standardize them. Tom stood at the back of the crowd, reading through the event list with growing interest. There were standard races at various gravity levels, strength competitions, flexibility challenges, and even specialized events like Cloud's suggested shape-shifting obstacle course. Are you going to compete in everything? Blue asked, hovering at 0.6 g, their new personal best. You could probably win most of the high-gravity events. Tom shook his head. That wouldn't be fair. I'm only entering a few events, and I'll use gravity adjusters for some to level the playing field. Rock crystallized nearby, their facets reflecting the holoscreen's light. Wise choice. The point is to show what each species can do, not to dominate. The next few weeks transformed the Academy into a training ground unlike anything seen before in galactic history. Different species paired up to help each other prepare, each sharing their unique insights and abilities. Tom found himself at the center of a daily training group. He helped Blue perfect their form for the 0.7 g sprint, a remarkable achievement for their species. In return, Blue taught Tom their people's famous floating dance techniques, which helped improve his balance in low gravity. Remember, Tom explained to a group of eager students, humans aren't actually the strongest species in every way. We're just well-rounded. Each of you has abilities that we could never match. To prove his point, he asked Cloud to demonstrate their species' ability to split into multiple smaller forms and reform instantly, a feat that left even Professor Gray speechless. Rock showed off their crystal form's ability to refract light in beautiful and challenging patterns, creating a new event category for aesthetic performance. One afternoon, as Tom was practicing with weights at 1.5 g, showing off a bit, he had to admit, Professor Gray approached him privately. Mr. Smith, they said, their silver eyes serious, I need to discuss something with you about the championship. Tom carefully set down the weights. Is something wrong? Quite the opposite. Your presence has revolutionized our approach to physical education. However, some staff members are concerned about the potential risks of full human capabilities being displayed. I understand, Tom nodded. That's why I've been careful about which events I enter. I don't want to scare anyone or make them feel inadequate. Professor Gray's expression softened slightly. Your sensitivity does you credit, but there's another matter. We've received requests from 17 other academic institutions to send observers to the championship. Your Earth exercises have become somewhat of a galactic sensation. Tom felt his face grow warm. I'm just trying to help everyone get stronger in their own way. And that's exactly why we need to proceed carefully. We'd like you to demonstrate some human abilities. Carefully controlled, of course, but also serve as a speaker about inclusive physical education. Before Tom could respond, Blue came zooming past at 0.7 g, their excited voice echoing through the gym. I did it. A full lap without getting tired. Tom grinned at Professor Gray. That right there, that's what this should be about. Not what humans can do, but what everyone can achieve when we work together. The professor's skin shifted to a lighter shade of gray, their species equivalent of a smile. Indeed, though I must admit, watching Miss Blue master Earth-level exercises is almost as impressive as your feats. More impressive, actually, Tom corrected. I was born able to handle high gravity. They're pushing past their species' normal limits through pure determination. As they watched Blue celebrate with other students, Tom felt a surge of pride. The championship would be interesting, but the real victory had already happened. Fear had turned into friendship, and differences had become strengths. The day of the Interspecies Athletic Championship arrived with great fanfare. The Academy's gymnasium had been transformed into a multi-level arena, with viewing areas at different gravity levels, so all species could watch comfortably. Observers from other institutions filled the upper levels, their recording devices tracking every moment. "Welcome to this historic event," Professor Gray's voice boomed through the arena. "Today, we celebrate the diverse physical capabilities of all species in our galactic community." Tom stood with his fellow students in the preparation area, watching as Cloud performed an amazing display of shape-shifting, splitting into dozens of smaller forms to navigate a complex obstacle course. The audience gasped in amazement as Cloud reformed at the finish line in a perfect spiral pattern. "That's going to be hard to beat," Tom said admiringly. Blue, now confidently maintaining 0.7 g, nodded in agreement. Each species brings something unique. The crystalline student's light refraction performance was beautiful too. The events progressed smoothly, with each species showcasing their natural talents. Rock led their crystalline team in a dazzling display of synchronized light bending. A group of gas-filled beings demonstrated incredible aerial maneuvers. Even the normally shy liquid-form species created stunning patterns in their special containment fields. Then came the strength events. Tom had carefully chosen to compete in only one, the 1G clean and press. As he stepped onto the platform, the arena grew quiet. "Remember," Coach Green had told him, "show them control, not just power." Tom approached the weight bar, which was set to what he considered a moderate weight. With careful, controlled movements, he demonstrated perfect form as he lifted. The audience watched in fascination as he completed his set without any gravity reduction. "Notice the precision," Professor Gray commented to the observers. "Human strength isn't just about raw power, but about fine control and technique." But the real excitement came during the mixed species relay race. Teams of 4, each from different species, had to complete a course that included sections at various gravity levels. Tom was last in his team's lineup, after Blue, Rock, and Cloud. The race began, and Blue surprised everyone by maintaining 0.8 g through their section, a new personal best. Rock crystallized through their part with perfect precision, and Cloud split and reformed to pass multiple obstacles simultaneously. Then disaster struck, just as Cloud was about to hand off to Tom. A malfunction caused one of the gravity field generators to surge. Several floating spectators suddenly dropped as their gravity reducers struggled to compensate. Without hesitation, Tom leaped into action. Moving at full human speed and strength for the first time since joining the academy, he sprinted across the arena, catching 2 falling students before they hit the ground. His muscles strained as he supported their weight, carefully adjusting his grip to avoid hurting them with his superior strength. "Gravity stabilizers engaging," announced the automated system, but there were still several students drifting in unstable gravity fields. "Blue, Rock," Tom called out. "Remember our practice sessions?" Working together, they formed a rescue team. Blue, now confident in higher gravity, helped guide drifting students to safety. Rock used their crystal form to create stable platforms, while Cloud split into multiple forms to help stabilize the affected areas. When everything was finally under control, the arena erupted in applause. Not for the competition, but for the seamless cooperation between species that had prevented any injuries. Professor Gray's voice cut through the cheers. "This, everyone, is the true victory we hope to achieve. Not just showcasing our different abilities, but learning to use them together. Tom looked around at his teammates, Blue hovering steadily at high gravity, Rock gleaming with pride, and Cloud swirling happily. The fear that had marked his first day felt like a distant memory now. "Should we finish the race?" he asked with a smile. "The race?" Blue laughed. "I think we just won something much more important." 2 months after the championship, the Galactic Academy of Physical Sciences had changed beyond recognition. The once rigid gravity zones had been replaced with variable fields, allowing students to gradually increase their tolerance. What had started as one human student joining a gym class had sparked a revolution in galactic physical education. Tom stood in the center of the gymnasium, watching with pride as Blue demonstrated proper push-up form to a group of new students, at 0.9 g, no less. In the corner, Rock was leading a crystal form meditation class that helped species of all types improve their balance and spatial awareness. "Mr. Smith," Professor Gray called, floating down from their office. "The Academy Board has finished reviewing your proposal for the new curriculum." Tom straightened up, trying not to look nervous. After the championship, he'd submitted a detailed plan for integrating Earth-style physical training with the unique abilities of other species. They'd not only approved it, Professor Gray continued, their silver skin gleaming with excitement, but they also recommended its adoption across all galactic educational institutions. "Your adaptive training approach will become the new standard." The news spread quickly through the gym. Clouds split into multiple forms in celebration, creating a spectacular display of swirling patterns near the ceiling. Several crystalline students refracted light in beautiful celebratory patterns. "Does this mean?" Blue began, their eyes wide with hope. "Yes," Professor Gray nodded. "The Academy will become the first institution to offer a comprehensive multi-species physical education program. And Mr. Smith, they'd like you to help develop it." Tom felt his face grow warm. "I just showed people what humans already knew, that bodies can adapt and grow stronger with proper training." "Don't be modest," Rock chimed in, their facets gleaming. "You showed us that what we saw as limitations were really just starting points. Look at Blue. No one from their species had ever handled more than 0.5 g before. Blue demonstrated by doing a perfect cartwheel at 0.9 g, something that would have been impossible just months ago. And it's not just about gravity tolerance. Every species has discovered new capabilities they never knew they had." Professor Gray activated a holoscreen, displaying messages from other academic institutions. "We've received hundreds of applications from students across the galaxy. It seems everyone wants to try Earth-style training, with appropriate modifications for their species, of course." "What about the safety concerns?" Tom asked, remembering the initial fear his presence had caused. "Actually," Professor Gray's skin shifted to a lighter shade, their version of a smile. "Your careful approach to training has resulted in fewer injuries than our previous standardized system. It turns out that letting each species progress at their own pace, while challenging their limits safely, works better than trying to force everyone into the same mold." Cloud descended from the ceiling to join the conversation. "My species never thought we could maintain solid form for more than a few minutes. Now we can hold shape for hours with proper training. We're even developing new transportation techniques based on what we've learned." The gymnasium doors slid open as a group of official-looking beings entered, representatives from various galactic educational boards. They stopped short at the sight of Blue doing pull-ups at near-Earth gravity, while crystalline students spotted them. "Impressive," one of the officials said. "Very impressive indeed. Perhaps we were wrong to classify humans as merely dangerous Deathworlders. Your species' understanding of physical development could revolutionize galactic society." Tom shook his head. "With all respect, I think you're missing the point. The revolution isn't about human capabilities. It's about discovering what every species can do when given the chance to grow stronger in their own way." As if to prove his point, a new student, a liquid form being who had once been too scared to leave their containment field, successfully completed their first supervised free-form exercise. Professor Gray addressed the officials. What you're seeing here isn't just physical education. It's the future of galactic cooperation, one where we don't just accept our differences, but celebrate and build upon them. Tom looked around at his friends, no longer aliens to fear or be feared by, but partners in something revolutionary. The terrified whispers of Deathworlder had been replaced by excited discussions of personal bests and new achievements. So, Blue called out with a grin, ready to start planning next semester's program. I heard we're getting students from 50 new species. Tom smiled. He was more than ready. After all, every species had something to teach, and everyone had something to learn.